What is going on, everyone? It's DJ Eric Cool. Welcome back to another video. And today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking a look at how to make a West Coast type beat. If you've been following the channel, you know that I recently uploaded a video that I detail some of the major subgenres of rap. One of these major subgenres is West Coast, and I'm going to start a little series here branching out from drill, which is what I normally do on the channel, and I'm going to start by diving into West Coast and eventually all of the more kind of relevant kind of genres that are still kind of popular today. And I'm going to be going for sounds sort of like Tyga. There's a lot of like voices and sounds that can be classified in the West Coast genre. You got YG, you got Nipsey Hussle, you got Shoreline Mafia, you can even consider some of Jack Harlow's stuff sort of West Coast, even though he's from Louisville, so it's really a lot of stuff you got to choose from, but I'm gonna go with Tyga. A lot of Tyga's sound consists of a very simple but catchy melody. It's usually sampled or flipped from something. In one of his more recent songs, he flipped a saxophone sample, which sounded really cool. But in the sake of like teaching you guys something, I'm not going to be sampling, I'm going to be playing in a melody. Using this Nexus instance here, this violin solo 1. It sounds something like this. So yeah, I'm going to go try to mess with a melody, and I'll cut to me playing in a melody that I like. Okay, now we got that melody played in, I'm going to come up here and quantize it. I'm going to go through and make sure that the quantization didn't miss anything. You know, it missed this over here, that's going to be on the 4. If you work in FL long enough, you'll realize that quantization doesn't always get everything. So now that we got that melody played in, I'm going to start with the drums. I'll probably add a second kind of counter melody in later to kind of complement this one, but I want to do the drums first to see how much space we'll need to fill with this second sort of background melody. I'm going to start with this clap here. A lot of West Coast sounds use a very kind of meaty sort of clap like the one you just heard. And I also mentioned in that previous video that they use a lot of snaps. And sometimes they use none of that, so it really depends, but this clap is very common in a lot of West Coast stuff. And I'm just going to put it on the 3. So now we got something that sounds like this. Alright, so now it's time for the hi-hats. I got a hi-hat that sounds something like this. And what I'm going to be doing with that, I'm just going to right click on the sound, I'm going to go over and fill each 4 steps. We're going to be keeping it simple with the drums as we kept it simple with the melody, because West Coast beats, they use this style a lot, just these sort of 8th note steps. Sometimes they use even less hi-hats. It really depends on what kind of vibe you're going for. Now the beat sounds like this. So as you can hear, we're already getting something that Tyga might rap on. Next, I'm going to move on to the kick. A very common kick pattern used in West Coast is something like this. Or maybe I'll make a change by adding a second kick in here, or maybe adding in a kick here. You know, this kick pattern, having the kick hit here, then you hit here on the red, and again on the red here, it's very common, and it sounds something like this. You see, this kick kind of bounces off the clap at the end. It's a little change up after, you know, this pattern, so we're not just repeating it the whole song. Alright, I'm back in the melody track because I'm going to move on to the 808. This 808 1C here, it sounds something like this. And I'm basically just going to mirror it with this melody. But before I do that, I'm going to come into the 808. And I'm going to make sure I'm on this miscellaneous functions menu. It might open you up into the sample settings, but click on this wrench up here. And what you want to do is come down to this group menu, and you want to click cut self. What this does is when you play the 808 and then switch it to another note, it cuts out that previous note. So if I like walk down the keyboard right now, it's not going to like clash and form one kind of really deep, ugly sort of blob thing. It allows you to kind of play in notes without worrying that they might clash. So now I'm just going to follow the melody. sure I quantize that. That last note sounded slightly off. And now that we got the notes in, I'm going to move it to a new pattern so I can move it in and out as I please. I'll just kind of copy that, maybe add in a slightly different note here. I'll add a lower note C in here. So it'll sound like this. Alright, so now with the 808, the beat sounds like this. Alright, so that's sounding good. Just want to give a quick footnote before I move on to the next sound, and that is if you want this 808 to cut out immediately when you take it out. Let's say I want to move over here and have a new instance without the 808, a new like section without the 808. What I can do is make a new pattern. I'm going to open up the piano roll, make sure I have the 808 selected, and I'm going to add in another 808. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down and adjust the velocity all the way down. That way the cut self realizes that there's a note there, but when it goes to play the note, the velocity is all the way down, so it's just going to cut right out. So it sounds like this. As opposed to, that hanging note can be ugly in some circumstances, so it's really up to you though. Alright, so now that I mentioned that, I'm going to move on to the open hat. I'm going to touch on the stomp right after the open hat. But the open hat, like with any other beat, I'm going to just have it follow the kick. You know, we can add a little variation if we want to, like take away this one and maybe add a second one in somewhere, but you know, just keeping it very simple. Alright, so the next sound is the stomp. This is a very sort of iconic sound in the West Coast style. I hear it used in other beats as well. I like to use the sound very sparingly, so I'm just going to kind of put it in the second time this 4-bar phrase comes around here, and I'm just going to kind of throw it over here somewhere. Alright, so yeah, nothing really major, but it does add an element that we can add or remove to, you know, make the beat a little more interesting. Alright, so the next thing is this sound that I picked out ahead of time for this sort of counter melody. I liked it because it was a very subtle pluck. And I think that we could add some sort of counter melody to kind of fill the spaces in between this violin. Alright, so I'm just going to loop this melody I just played in. After quantizing it, making sure that all looks good. This looks a little off here. Alright, so I think adding this sound will complete all the components we need to make the beat. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to arrange this beat, and I'll be back to break down how I did that for you guys. Alright guys, so I got the full beat arranged, so I'm going to break down how I did it. So we come in kind of guns blazing, you know, normally with a lot of my drill beats, it'll just be the melody first, but now we got almost everything except the these three patterns, which is the hat, other melody, and the stomp. But right before the beat drops, I bring in this chop where I chop everything up minus the hat and clap, and we get something that sounds like this. This whole chopping aspect is very popular in a lot of West Coast type beats. I know it was used in other genres as well, but it's very popular in the West Coast sort of style. Now we move into this chorus section here, which we start off with everything minus the open hat and stomp, and then we bring in the open hat and stomp for the second half. We come to the verse, which I remove some of these elements, and then we add some back in. This section is just the melody and the 808. And then over here we have a section where the melody's pitched down an octave. We come back to another chorus. The second verse is somewhat similar, except I arranged stuff differently. We got the pitch down melody here, and we got a chop in here. For the outro, all I did was add in a volume envelope, which you can do by right-clicking on the master volume and click Create Automation Clip. I don't know if OBS is going to pick this up, but you right-click and it's like the 5th or 6th option down, Create Automation Clip. And what you can do is right click on this envelope and insert points, and then drag the points, up or down. And that's what I did here. It just fades out at the end. Yeah, that is basically how I arranged it. So now I'm gonna play it for you guys. Alright guys, so yeah, that is the final beat. I can totally hear Tyga rapping on this, doing some whatever. I can't really do his like roar sort of thing really well, but I could definitely envision him rapping on this. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys learned something. If you did, your support would be greatly appreciated. If you could go down, like the video, drop a comment, let me know what you think. And if you got any suggestions for future videos, you can drop that in the comments as well. Also, you could really help me out by subscribing. I was on my YouTube analytics page, right? And only around 8 to 9% of the people who actually watch my videos are subscribed. So go down right now. Let's get that number up to 20% as soon as possible. So yeah, guys, as I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys later.